have to learn the law. You have to learn what the law means in your society and what it doesn't mean. And you have to find your way around that the same way that the rich and powerful, and the same way that the mafia, and the same way that the cartels, and the same way that the politicians and the CEOs find their way around it. You actually have the ability to impose loss on companies. Profit loss. Loss through reduced revenues, loss through increased expenses. You have the ability to push the private sector power. You have the ability to push them across that threshold of unprofitability, which, as I say, is exactly where they never want to ever be. And you have the ability to push them there. And they will negotiate with you to keep themselves out of that zone of unprofitability. It's a very straightforward dynamic when it comes to business. That's one of the reasons why they never wanted you to even know. They never wanted you to even understand where actual power lies. They wanted you to keep you misdirected. They want to keep you looking at the government, keep you looking at political parties, looking at politicians and so forth. Democracy and all of that. They want to keep you looking over there because the real existing power players in the private sector are fundamentally vulnerable and fragile, and they are fundamentally susceptible to pressure by the public, much more than even your so-called elected representatives are susceptible to the pressure of the electorate. But you got so used to the fabricated, designated opposition in the U.S. that you don't know what opposition really looks like. You don't know what opposition really means. Opposition isn't mainstream. By definition, it's not Bernie Sanders, it's not AOC, certainly it's not Tucker Carlson or whoever else, or Candace Owens. I said it before, it's one of the most ingenious and one of the most insidious aspects of how the West, or how totally the West has consolidated power, authoritarian power, that they have actually been able to dictate who the opposition will be and how it's going to look like, what dissent is going to look like. You know, not only do they tell you what policy is, but they've also decided for you how objection to that policy is supposed to be and who is supposed to represent opposition. No, none of that is opposition. None of that is resistance. None of that is dissent. You have to actually wrap your head around the fact that the power structure in America and throughout the West is authoritarian in nature. This isn't rhetoric. And dissent, real dissent, is criminalized. It's criminalized. It's criminalized more than anything that you would normally define as criminal in an authoritarian society, and you're in one. So understand that if you're going to become opposition, or if you're going to become, part of the resistance, if you're going to become a resistance activist, so-called, well, you need to understand that that means that you are embarking upon a life of crime. As far as your society is concerned, it's a life of crime, and you need to act accordingly. That means that you have to learn the law. You have to learn what the law means in your society and what it doesn't mean. And you have to find your way around that the same way that the rich and powerful, and the same way that the mafia, and the same way that the cartels, and the same way that the politicians and the CEOs find their way around it. You actually have the ability to impose loss on companies. Profit loss. Loss through reduced revenues, loss through increased expenses. You have the ability to push the private sector power. You have the ability to push them across that threshold of unprofitability, which, as I say, is exactly where they never want to ever be. And you have the ability to push them there. And they will negotiate with you to keep themselves out of that zone of unprofitability. It's a very straightforward dynamic when it comes to business. That's one of the reasons why they never wanted you to even know. They never wanted you to even understand where actual power lies. They wanted you to keep you misdirected. They want to keep you looking at the government, keep you looking at political parties, looking at politicians and so forth. Democracy and all of that. They want to keep you looking over there because real existing power, but you got so used to the fabricated, designated opposition in the U.S. that you don't. America, the imperial heir of Europe, the neoliberal economic firing squad of corporate power. They used to spray their bullets like a mass shooter all across the global south. Well, America is descending into madness. You're descending into madness because you're cursed. That's why I've said you cannot properly analyze geopolitics. You cannot properly analyze geopolitics if you exclude the reality of divine justice. You cannot exclude God from your assessments. You can't exclude Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from your forecasts. And you cannot be as unjust, as brutal, as degenerate, as wicked as America has been, and actually think that the consequences are not going to be severe. You understand? The suffering of whole continents at your hands is going to ricochet back onto.
That's who he is. Middle Nation. That's him right there. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensie Owl Bob. And how you doing? Good to see you, Jamie, and the other four. So my story yesterday, it didn't seem to go up. I almost got 300 views. Who knew? Anyway.
Donald, I was reading about the environment. What is your plan for, saving the planet?
Melania, sweetheart, the planet's fine. It's the Pacific Ocean we need to worry about. China's probably out there right now trying to buy it.
Buy the ocean. That's not how it works, Donald.
Of course it works. You just slap a big, beautiful Trump logo on it, and boom, it's ours. No one does oceans better than me.
But what about the fish, the coral reefs, the rising sea levels?
Fish, coral, rising sea levels. Fake news, Melania. The ocean's just water, and water's easy. We'll make it great again.
Donald, this is why people think you don't understand science.
Science? I've got the best science. Tremendous science. People are saying it's the best they've ever seen.
Donald, I was reading about the environment. What is...
Well, look who it is, the big guy himself. Jesus, I've been told my approval rating is higher than God's.
Approval rating? What in heaven's name are you talking about?
Oh, come on, don't play coy with me. I've got the numbers, the best numbers. People love me, Jesus. They love me more than you.
You're comparing yourself to God? That's bold.
Not just comparing, my friend. I'm winning. Big league.
Winning? You think this is some kind of competition?
Everything's a competition, Jesus. That's how you get ahead. That's how you make deals.
Deals? You're talking about salvation like it's a real estate transaction.
Hey, salvation, real estate, it's all about branding. And I've got the best brand.
Branding? You're serious?
Dead serious. People see my name, they think success, they see yours, they think sandals.
Sandals? That's your takeaway from my entire existence?
Hey, I'm just saying you could use a rebrand, maybe a new slogan, something catchy.
A slogan? Like what? Turn the other cheek now with 20% more forgiveness?
See? Now you're getting it. That's the kind of thinking that wins elections.
I'm not running for office, Donald.
Maybe you should. I mean, you've got the name recognition. You just need the right campaign manager.
I think I'll pass. Eternity's long enough without adding politics to it.
Suit yourself, but don't come crying to me when my approval rating hits 110%.
I'll keep that in mind. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual work to do.
All right, time to make history. But first, let me take a presidential shit. Like and follow for more. Well. Look. Devil, I've been thinking hell would vote for me, 100%, no question.
Already did, Donnie. Every single damn soul.
Wait, you're saying hell already voted for me? Tremendous.
Oh, absolutely. Rigged the flames, stuffed the ballot pits, the whole infernal shebang.
That's genius. You're a genius. I always knew we'd get along.
Don't flatter me, Donnie. I'm not running your campaign.
But you could. Imagine the rallies, fire, brimstone, the works.
I don't do freebies, and your soul's already on layaway.
Hurting. Layaway? That's fake news. My soul's the best soul. Everyone says so.
Sure. Best soul, most corrupt deals. You're my star client.
Star client? I like that. Put it on a plaque.
Plaques melt down here, Donnie. Just like your approval ratings.
Approval ratings? Hell's ratings are through the roof because of me.
Through the roof? Try through the molten core.
Molten core, molten schmacore. I'm still winning.
Winning? You're in hell, Donnie. That's the opposite of winning.
Hell's just a rebranding opportunity. I'll call it Trump Inferno.
Trump Inferno? Sounds like a bad cologne.
Bad cologne? It'll sell out faster than your soul contracts.
Keep dreaming, Donnie. Down here, I own the market.
Devil, I've been thinking hell would vote for me, 100%, no question.
Already did, Donnie. Every single damn soul.
Wait, you're saying hell
See, this is what it is, kids. This is totally what is going on.
Stuff the ballot pits, the whole infernal shebang.
That's genius.
That's
You're
why
a genius.
I think Donnie is a genius. I love this guy. I mean, he is causing the collapse of an empire. Most empires, Heart of Darkness. Go read that story. And Apocalypse Now is based on it, and it's kind of funny. Both those books were really art, really beautiful, really spoke to the case of the European modality of extraction through blood, right? And basically, both the book and the movie spoke to that
You're in hell,
horror
Daddy.
show, but they
That's
never
the opposite of winning.
took it
Hell's
from
just
the
a
point of
rebranding
view of the
opportunity.
other,
I'll call
you
it
know,
Trump Inferno.
Trump
of
Inferno.
the African,
Sounds like a
you
bet.
know, that was the Heart of Darkness. Apocalypse Now, that was the Vietnamese, and it's just I just love it because I mean, I went in my church, and one of the deacons went on and on about end times, and we're all going to heaven because God, we're the chosen ones. Right along, that's why we need to support the Jews. But you know, the guys in Israel aren't Jews. It's really sad. It is these guys. Yeah, this here is Bibi. That's Bibi right there. That's Bibi, and pretty much the poor people in Israel. You know, they're all white Europeans who went there on a good real estate deal. You get your butt here and call yourself a Zionist, and we'll give you whatever you want, right? And America pays for it, right? So it's.
All right, Mr. President, the deficit is ballooning faster than a goddamn tech IPO. We're talking trillions here.
Trillions? That's a lot of zeros. But don't worry, JD. I've got a plan. I always have a plan.
Oh, this should be good. What's the plan, Don? Sell naming rights to the moon, Trump Lunar Resort?
No. That's next quarter. This time I'm thinking bigger. I'll just ask Jesus here for a financial miracle.
A financial miracle? You want me to what? Turn water into Bitcoin?
Jesus Christ, no offense. This is the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
Relax, JD. Jesus loves me. He'll do it. Right, Jesus? You're a big fan.
Fan? I'm more like a reluctant subscriber to your Chaos channel.
We're screwed. The markets are gonna eat us alive, and you're banking on divine intervention?
Markets love me, JD. They love me more than they love money. Believe me.
You know, Don, I could just smite the debt collectors. Poof, no more deficit.
That's not how any of this works. Jesus, you're not helping.
See, JD? Jesus is on board. We're golden.
I didn't say I was on board. I said I could smite. Big difference.
This is a goddamn circus. We're all gonna burn.
Burn? No, JD. We're going to shine. Like gold. Like Trump Tower at sunset.
You're delusional, Don. But hey, it's your apocalypse. I'm just here for the popcorn.
I can't believe I left venture capital for this shit.
You're welcome, JD. You're part of history now. Big, beautiful history.
History? More like a blooper reel. Let's get out of here before the lightning starts.
All right, Mr. President.
Mars is red? That's a disaster, Elon. A total disaster.
Well, it's red because of iron oxide, Mr. President. Science, you know.
Iron oxide? Sounds like fake news. We should paint it gold. Gold is classy, it's strong, it's me.
Gold Mars? That's bold. But wouldn't that, cost a metric shit ton?
Cost. JD, cost is irrelevant when you're disrupting planetary aesthetics.
Exactly, disruption. That's what I do. I disrupt. I'm the disruptor in chief.
But how do you even paint a planet? Like, logistically?
Simple. We deploy autonomous paint drones. I've already got a prototype. It's called the Mars Makeover 3000.
Mars Makeover 3000? That's a terrible name. Call it the Trump Touch. Much better.
Sure, Trump Touch. Whatever strokes your ego.
Okay, but what happens when the paint chips off? Space litter?
Base litter? JD, you're thinking small. We'll just repaint it. Keep it fresh like my hotels.
Repainting Mars every decade? That's ambitious, even for me.
Ambitious is my middle name. Well, not really, but it should be.
I'm just saying, this sounds like a PR nightmare waiting to happen.
PR nightmare? No, it's a branding opportunity. Imagine Mars, brought to you.
Branding opportunity. That's what we got here. We got a branding opportunity. It's all branding. It's branding 24 hours a day. So there's 4 of you there. Let's see some more thumbs up. So how about some good questions? Let's see. Got it. Thanks. Doing good. Let's see. Where do we got here? Who made this guy? Yep, exactly. Jordan Maxwell said much of the same. Yep, pretty much. So that's our friend that we started to show off with. Let's see. Let's go back to.
The deficit is ballooning fast.
Boo.
What's your plan for?
Yes, here he is.
But you got so used to the fabricated, designated opposition.
Oh, here, let's see what this boy has to say.
This little thing helped me more than my last therapy
That
session.
little
It's
thing,
called
you know,
Candy.
that Donnie has, that
Like
little
plush
thing.
toy design.
Hello, humans. Hello, humans. September 7, 2025. We're here to talk about something 2 years out. Resurrection 2027. This is a confluence of events. We're in a period of time where, okay, so let me preface this. I'm going to not provide sources. I will provide you with keywords. You can go look up the material I'm telling you. I'm going to present material in which a mesh is created where things blend together. And you will have to connect, you'll have to go and look at the interface between these things in order to see that I'm correct about these things meshing, okay, across time, across technology, across human interactions, etc. So this is probably number one of maybe even a 6 or 7 part series. It's about what's going to happen to humanity 2 years out. Obviously, we've got to get through 2026. The material I'm talking about for 2027 will present itself in 2026. And if you're astute enough, you'll be able to see the lay of the land as it is rising up into our reality. And you'll see that I'm mostly correct about this. But of course, there's going to be so many subtle variations that are caused by each person's individual understanding of language. Even though we're using a common language and the common words, the connotations are different. So there will be a wide spread of understanding of what I'm going to tell you. So many people will say, no, it didn't work out that way and so on. But we'll see 2 years from now, okay? So this is going to be number one in a series of videos. As I say, maybe 7, okay? The subject is complex, but not particularly complicated. So you just have to see all of the individual parts as they are and then realize it's like a 12-sided dice, and you're looking at the individual side of it, right? And so you're not seeing the whole thing until you hold it way back after having looked at all of the sides.
That's what I do every day.
Start here today. A bit of history. Reported in videos on this group I belong to, right? The Old Farts group. And we did translations of weird-ass old languages, basically because we're all retired and we're in circumstances that left us bored, and we all had a penchant for language. And our liking for language brought us all together across time. What was curious to me at the time was that so many of these guys within this group, 9 out of 12, were trying to get to be citizens in Russia. They were all expats from Britain, U.S., etc. They all had individual reasons, but they all ended up going there. They all shared certain common experiences. We communicated over the internet late at night, my time. And we had some serious progress in what we were doing. In those studies, we went through a whole lot of languages. I went through all of the common Hindu languages now, all the way through Pali and all the way through all these other languages, using AI on a whole lot of source material that had come our way. I was sort of the director of this in terms of, setting certain paces or certain paths, and these were simply on my own interest. I was actually just looking for offshoots of information about Vaimani, which are the ancient Hindu text descriptions of these flying castles that did battle. You'd read about them in like the various large texts about battles in ancient India, right? And so I was interested in these basic human-made UFOs, okay? It turns out that if you dive into it, it's my understanding that they were not human-made. They may have been human-made, but not human-invented, okay? That this technology of these flying castles was brought here. The technology is interesting. I'll get into it in further videos about this. It's interesting at a fundamental level, but what really grabbed my attention was this constant reference to these devices that I termed the mind-to-machine interface. And because there was a lot of ancillary material in old hymns, you have to understand people didn't write paperbacks, they didn't write declarative books back in these days. This was all encapsulated in common sayings and hymns in that kind of interaction. And these hymns describe a world that we don't think about in a realistic way. And in so doing, they kept coming back to these devices that they would put humans into. They being people that we could identify as the Anunnaki or the Elohim. They had various words for them that always meant gods, but basically we're talking space aliens. Beings not from our species, beings from some other place, right? We let aside all of the wheres and all of that at the moment. Okay, so we come across this old parts group. We sit around, we discuss this, we go off, do research, we come back, we collect, and we come across some interesting aspects of this. Some levels of the mechanistic stuff that was described, we think, in these hymns. It's a matter, in some cases, of interpretation and connotation of very specific words in an ancient language that we don't know how the author was intending that word to be perceived. So there's ambiguity all the fucking gone. Anyway, but we did make a lot of progress. And this is pertinent because Resurrection 2027 is all about the mind-to-machine interface. And so this is going to be a wireless, but contact mind-to-machine interface. So Elon Musk's chip in your head is going to be leapfrogged. Okay, the technology is already in development now. I'm not getting into how I know these things. I'm going to get visits from people anyway about this. And I don't want to discuss this with officialdom, but nonetheless, this is the case. This technology is already in development now. It is based on an analog system. It's based around this thing called Ampere's law. Ampere was this guy who did incredibly delicate, refined thinking about electricity in the early 1800s. And I'll probably get this wrong, but I think he came up with his primary discovery here that was named Ampere's law in 1825. But that early, right? I mean, way before Maxwell. Maxwell thought the guy was a genius. Leclerc Maxwell thought the guy was a genius. Heaviside hated both Maxwell and Ampere for being there, and Heaviside, in my opinion, was one of the guys that shelved Ampere out of the way, because we don't take any of his work into account these days, but it's so fucking incredible that you can't imagine. Okay, so at the core of Ampere's law,
and that's kind of what he's talking about.
This is a key component. Ampere's
I
law
fooled around with this kind of technology in the 70s.
Interfaces with the mind-to-machine
inside entities like
you understand the electricity involved, it is
the ISIS Foundation
and at a level of refined control that we
John
cannot
Hopkins
even
and Rockefeller Foundation and the Theosophical Society, all who, through another entity, bankrolled a thing on Spring Street called the Green Door. It's one of those beautiful
on contact, and this is
1890s factory buildings that we turned into an esoteric laboratory.
And your mind connects to the UFO and you go zipping off. This was also described within the hymns and in Sanskrit, Sanskrita, and Avesta. These are way old languages that predate the concept of Persia. Okay, they go way the fuck back, or where Iran is now. These languages described the situation of these people, the humans, dealing with the Elohim, the gods of the Bible. And
plural.
I am absolutely obsessed with what's inside this box. It is literally my favorite thing to eat now.
What's in the box?
And they would go through whole villages looking for specific DNA. And they had some device that told them about, or not DNA, but capability of the mind. Because I don't think DNA is obviously involved, but we need not get diverted. Okay, it was actually the individual mind presenting itself in that human that they were after. And they would get these humans, they'd use them as the pilots, but also to a certain extent like the engine control. Okay, so it's not like you're just maneuvering, it's actually draining your physical life form in the process of doing this. So the humans didn't last more than 18 months. Many of them didn't last more than did not last a year. They might be really good and you'd burn them out in 9 months, right? And so you got to constantly hunt for these guys. We came across, my old farce group came across an intriguing old hymn talking about a slaughter in a village in which specific individuals were selected as though the village was an asset in the other Elohim and they didn't want the other Elohim to have any remnants of that asset within there. And so they wiped out the DNA. This set us on this trail, which led me to a certain level of thinking, which now is being produced and meshed with what's actually emerging. Okay, so I have reason to think that certain breakthroughs have already been achieved, and that Ampere's law is being used to form the first tentative mind-to-machine connections with humans.
It happened. I mean, he's talking about that. It happened way before
breakthroughs occurred
our culture, right? So it's been happening
again
and
and they'll
again
manifest
and
for
again.
us across 2026 in various different places and come together in a confluence in 2027 in the actual device itself, right? There'll be prototypes, there'll be working ones, they won't be frying people's brains and so on. Okay, so let me give you quickly Ampere's law that is pertinent. He has lots of corollaries. This is a very subtle corollary to it because we're dealing with bioelectricity, right? Ampere never understood, I doubt he even conceived of humans as running on electric current within our brains. But this guy had a subtle level of understanding of electric current that is great. If you take two magnets and you put the similar poles together, they try and push themselves apart. Okay, this is a solid law. I've got magnets all the hell and gone. I'm not going to bother demonstrating it. You've seen it in your life. If you haven't, you've got to go out and check it out. Anyway, so the thought was because coils of wire that are electrified, that spark off, become what we call an electromagnet. The thinking was that if you did this exact same thing, two sets of coils, and put similar poles together, that they would repel. That's not true. It does not happen. Okay, the subtlety gets really intense because you have to understand the nature of the current of the slow natural flow of the electricity through the copper coils. Okay, and we're going to bypass tons of subtlety here and state a quick conclusion to get us moving on. The conclusion is that Ampere discovered that currents moving through wires, we'll just look at this as one current.
It's not real.
This is another current.
Moving around wires.
And this is the north, that's the north, south, and south.
That's why it's EMF.
If you have the currents moving through the wire, cause an entrainment, okay? This entrainment overcomes the repulsive factor. It does not eliminate it. So it's not as though the repulsion goes away in the electromagnet. It is there. We just don't think about it because we can't easily see any outward effects in our reality.
It's not pushing
the poles of the two electromagnets that are similar poles do not repel. They glom together. It's like, huh? You know, that doesn't work on regular magnets.
Because
you can't
it's
do
a
that.
field.
You put
It's
two south
changing
poles
the
together, it's
field.
going to push apart. You put two north poles together, it's going to push apart. Okay, why does an electromagnet that in all other ways is a magnet work this way? Well, what Ampere discovered was that as all of these electrons and stuff are moving, that if you have two currents going in the same direction, that what happens is the repulsive force goes out to the side. So it is as though, and I'm doing this as a crude illustration just to get the concept to you, right? That the flow of the current causes the repulsive force to be redirected at a 90-degree angle. And that varies. So let's not get hung up on numbers at this stage. But the effect
one of Ampere's laws.
That the
current flows
repulsive force
90 degrees.
Is seen to
current is doing this.
As the entrainment force from the two currents flowing in the same direction cause each current to want to join the other current.
So this ain't super duper stuff. If you knew anything about Tesla's work and then his writings about the ancients that he kind of got through his dreams, just like Edgar Casey did. Edgar Casey could study a textbook, he'd put it under his pillow, he'd go to sleep, he'd wake up, he'd know everything in it.
Okay. Hopefully that's reasonably clear. You can go look up Ampere and his laws, get into all
and one of them is the 90-degree law. So the current is going this way, the field is going that way. And that's why these two magnets, right, instead of doing this, the two norths doing this, The field is actually going 90 degrees, by the way.
The ancient text talked about the burnout, the destruction of humans in this process.
Right, that's
It
why I
presented
never
three
volunteered.
formulas for gold-based products that were given to your human to make them last longer, sort of like engine tune-up kind of stuff. And your humans would last.
And that was the
longer,
stuff
but
that
you'd still
God
burn them out
sprinkled
relatively
over the
quickly.
Hebrews out
It
in
turns
the
out that
deserts,
the
you know,
issue
the
there
manna.
is
It's
exactly
a form
that
of gold.
entrainment, okay, and the inability of the humans to get their
And they ate it. They
mind
turned it
out
into bread.
of
That's what matzah is.
the
You know?
alien technology, right? To disconnect, so to speak. That the entrainment was persistent even when the human was not in the driver's seat. There was a chair, there were connections.
So this stuff, Cliff is pretty cool because he is giving you a simpler kind of way of catching it.
On Friday, we got the latest jobs report, the one for the month of August, and it is the worst jobs report, initial jobs report, because it'll probably be revised down. But it is the worst initial jobs report that this country has seen since the days of the Great Recession in the year 2009. In 8 months, from January to August, Donald Trump has created the worst economy here in the United States since we were in something that students are now learning about in history class called the Great Recession. In 8 months. All because we're dealing with the dumbest president to ever serve in the Oval Office, who doesn't understand how tariffs work. He doesn't understand how the economy works.
No.
He is surrounded
He's
himself
reading a
with people
script.
like Treasury Secretary Scott
Our
Bessent,
country's been
who is one
driven
of
off the cliff
most
into the ditch,
billionaires I've
however
ever
you want to
seen
look
in
at
my
it.
life, who goes out there daily lying on behalf of Trump. But the jobs report is also the first one that's come out since Donald Trump fired the Bureau of Labor Statistics chief, Erica McIntyre, Dr. Erica McIntyre, by the way. And it showed initially that the United States created 22,000 jobs in the month of August. 22,000. Now remember, when the May and June jobs reports got revised down and showed that we had created 14,000 and 17,000, at that moment, economists panicked, right? We're talking pants crapping alarm because, oh my God, that's a crappy number. And now the initial report for August is 22,000. And if you think that that's not going to be revised down further in a month or two, like jobs reports typically are, you're kidding yourself. My best guess, given how big the revisions had been in the past, is that we're going to show negative job growth for the month of August when all is said and done. We have more jobless people that are looking for work in the United States than we have job openings now. That's a stat that also came out this weekend. And Republicans are still out there screaming at the top of their lungs, nobody wants to work anymore. How about nobody wants to hire people anymore? How about that? And of course, the reason nobody wants to hire anybody is because Donald Trump has created uncertainty. The tariffs have made it impossible for businesses to plan ahead. They can't even look 6 months into the future because of Donald Trump's schizophrenic tariff policy. They're on again, they're off again, they're up, they're...
Come on, Jeffrey, you can do it. Pave the way, put your back into it. Tell us why. Show.
Bigo, bigo.
The real reason Korean women are so skinny and how Hollywood celebs secretly are using it. This is exactly what I do if I wanted to lose between 21 to 25 pounds in just 2 weeks. That means at least 1.5 pounds per day. And yes, if we're dropping about 1.5 pounds a day, it's totally possible to hit that goal. So grab a pen and paper. I'm going to break it all down for you.
You can see these guys are the same guy. They're being brought on by the same transnational state. This is all a game. And we're all being turned into the other. Ooh, that other on the corner. Ooh, that stinky other. Oh, that other. This is going to be your neighborhood right here, kids. Wherever you are. And I feel really sorry for the people in the Gaza Strip, right? Because they're just being used, you know? The Palestinians are being used, the people in Israel are being used, the people in all the Emirates are being used.
An extraordinary further escalation in the Middle East war, with Israel bombing Hamas leaders in their faraway Qatar homes, an act Qatar has described as cowardly and a clear breach of international law, but which Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says was a targeted strike against Hamas's terrorist chieftains. It seems they were part of the negotiating team. Given that the US has a huge air base not very far away, and yet seems to have given the green light for the attack, there are lots of questions to answer here. Lord Peter Ricketts, the former UK National Security Advisor, joins me now.
Another white man.
Answers. Lord Ricketts, thank you very much for this. First of all, Qatar says this is a clear breach of international law. Are they right?
I'm not a lawyer, Andrew, and you're not, but I was taught in my Foreign Office career that they do have a right of self-defense, but it is very hedged about in international law with conditions about proportionality and imminence, and Israel would have to produce the evidence that they thought this group were presenting an imminent threat to the state of Israel. So it's arguable, no doubt, in international law. The diplomatic consequences, I think, are very clear.
It was targeted, clearly, and relatively narrowly so, and it was in response to the murder of Israeli citizens yesterday. So that's clear. But it also suggests, given this is the negotiating team, that Israel has given up on any chance of negotiating with Hamas. All of that is over.
I think it's a pretty good rule of thumb in diplomacy that if you attack and try to kill the other side's negotiating team, you are not interested in a negotiated solution. I think it's now clear, it's been clear for some time, I think, that Netanyahu doesn't want to negotiate a ceasefire with Hamas. He is looking for total victory, whatever that means, total military control of Gaza. But I think it's a huge question, and perhaps Keir Starmer will put this to President Herzog of Israel tomorrow. What is the strategy now? Is it indeed to occupy, annex Gaza from here on in, to break the morale of the people of Gaza and drive them into expulsion, to going to other countries? Or is there still a route to a negotiated solution? I think tonight, I must say, it looks even more unlikely than it was before.
But indeed, Keir Starmer has condemned what's happened. What about the role of America, though? Because clearly they did know in advance, they've said that in the White House, and therefore they gave some kind of permission for this, and yet they themselves are an air base not very far away. So what do you think the thinking in the Trump administration might be about this?
Well, I think in terms of the Americans, we don't know whether they were informed 5 minutes before the attack or consulted in any way. Of course, the Israelis had to inform them. If they'd flown their aircraft towards the big American airbase, they could well have been shot down by US air defenses. Informing them, deconflicting, as the military would say at this moment, clearly that was essential. Whether that left the White House time to have stopped it, I don't know. But yes,
stop it, they ordered it.
Is that the White House at least acquiesced, accepted that...
No. It's guys. No.
Trump himself gives
Israel isn't. Israel is basically is a cutout for the elements of control, right? And this so is this clown. These white men. I mean, if you really wanted, why don't we get some black folk, some Arab folk? From people from Qatar. We don't even see what the people from Qatar has to say about this, you know? Whoops. let's see here. Let's go back. Oh, let's get to this guy.
But you got so used to the fabricated.
Yep, we're so used to the fabricated. Let's see what this guy's saying.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just, it's not the same.
Of course it's not the same. We're rebuilding what you broke.
Yeah.
Your so-called imperialism, your so-called colonization came and broke apart our unity. You broke apart our solidarity. You broke apart our cohesion, and we're rebuilding it. That's not imperialism. That's rebuilding what you broke. Because we were always one. We were always one entity. Really, we had collective sovereignty. We had each individual.
He's talking about Africa, not just
province. Each individual territory had its own jurisdiction. They had their own localized authorities.
This is before Persia, before
the context of a collective sovereignty under what was called the Khilafah. We are rebuilding that. That is being rebuilt in our lifetime, right now, at this moment. It's being rebuilt.
That question that you answered in the video about Arab imperialism.
Yeah.
It's not just.
Investment is like a syringe that's stuck into your country, and you think that it is pumping medicine into your country when actually it is extracting blood from you. Because you understand, when someone makes an investment, they want their money back, and they want more than their money back. They want to make a return on their investment. They want profit, and that profit is money from your economy that is flowing out of your economy. So anyway, if you do understand it, if you do understand how domination has been adapted in the last 8 decades or so to be primarily through economic means, then you should understand that anyone with capital has the ability to do that. Anyone who has significant capital has the ability to do the exact same thing. And that is what's happening. Investment is like a syringe. America, the imperial heir of Europe, the neoliberal economic firing squad of corporate power. They used to spray their bullets like a mass shooter all across the global south. Well, America is descending into madness. You're descending into madness because you're cursed.
No, he's right. But again, when he was talking about how the needle's put in the arm and you're not getting medicine, there's extraction. That's what's happening to America. We are being deconstructed, right? And that's why we had the last, since Jack Kennedy, that's why he was shot. He was trying to take the reins and pull us out, from going. We were right on the edge of the cliff, and he wanted to pull us back from that. Say, listen, we have to have a new start where everyone. I mean, his father was a big racist, Joe Kennedy, and he was a big criminal. He was a mobster, and he went from, the streets of Boston mobster into Wall Street, right? And he realized how to play the game, right? So it's
drill, baby, drill, right? Make America energy self-sufficient, et cetera, et cetera. Fire up all of the dormant oil wells and so forth in West Texas and so on, while simultaneously asking OPEC to lower oil prices, which of course means asking OPEC to increase production. Then the oil price drops and cheap oil floods the market, out of sync with demand, driving the price down even further. Now the price is too low for it to even be profitable for American producers to drill, to refine, or to extract. Do you understand? Plants, drilling sites, refineries, all of that is going to shut down. Tens of thousands of jobs will just disappear overnight. And for every one job in the oil and gas sector, there's at least 2 or 3 jobs that are indirectly related to that. So you were looking at potentially hundreds of thousands of jobs lost. When that happens, no one in the private sector is going to invest in the oil sector anymore. Drill, baby, drill, right? Make America energy self-sufficient, et cetera, et cetera. Fire up all of the dormant oil wells and so forth in West Texas and so on. That's the view that the power structure has about the law. It's the view that the rich have about the law. I mean, you and I both know that nobody in power believes that the law is actually supposed to determine whether they can or cannot do something. It only determines how they will do it. Because the truth of the matter is that in America, the only crime is breaking the law so obviously that you can get convicted. That's the system that you're in. That's the society that you're in. In that society, the rich have got you, the poor, jumping through hoops while they fly their private jets through loopholes. You understand? So learn your system. Learn what your system actually defines as legal and illegal. Now, I'm not telling you anything that you wouldn't be told by your attorney. I'm not telling you anything that you wouldn't hear from any attorney worth their salt. Lawyers are never interested in what you did or did not do. They are only interested in what can be proven. And that's how the people who run the system, that's how they operate. They operate on the basis of what they can get away with. Look, you have to understand something. You are a criminal. If you're an activist, you're a criminal. If you're pro-Palestine, you are a criminal. If you are against oppression, if you're against injustice, if you're against tyranny, if you're against genocide, you're a criminal in your society. I mean, hasn't the system taught you that already by now, after 2 years? You, your organizations, your groups, your communities, these are criminal organizations. Understand this. Just like the mafia, just like the cartels, just like the CEOs, and just like the politicians. Criminal organizations. You have to wrap your head around that. But just like how the cartels and just like how the mafia are never going to give up what they're doing, you and I both know they're never going to stop what they're doing. Activists are also never going to stop what they're doing. You're never going to give up what you're doing. But you see, the mob learned, organized crime learned the system. The cartels learned the system. They completely understand what legal and illegal means in America. So they do their best to stay on the side of what is legal. And legal means, again, whatever cannot be proven illegal in a court of law.
Yeah.
That's how your system works. Do you understand?
There is no justice. All it is just us. And you ain't part of that club. Go watch anything that George Carlin ever said.
Continue their criminal activity. You know that 75% of Americans can't even afford to buy a moderately priced home. Home foreclosures are up by almost 10% so far this year, nationwide.
I'm sitting on top of the world.
Even if we concede, just for the sake of argument, if we concede that capitalism has saved hundreds of millions of people from poverty, which is actually something that they've only started to say recently because they want to give capitalism credit for what China has done. It's nothing but a deflection from the literal billions of victims of capitalism. Because capitalism was a driving force in colonization, in slavery, modern slavery, famine, ecological disaster, deadly working conditions, on and on. So, for example, European colonization is estimated to have caused 50 million deaths. Capitalist-driven wars have resulted in 160 million deaths. Upwards of 20 million Africans died in the transatlantic slave trade. This is all from the impact of capitalism. Take credit for that, too. And that's just in the history. That's just in the past. But if you're talking about today, well, at least 8 million people die every year because they can't afford medicine. That's capitalism. About 9 million people die every year because they can't afford food. Half of those are children under the age of 5. Well, that's capitalism. 3 million people die every year because of unsafe working conditions. That's capitalism. So that's about 20 million people per year, or about 500 million, half a billion people since the year 2000. And that's just talking specifically about deaths. We're not talking about general suffering. Because if we talk about that, well, there's at least 50 million people living in conditions of modern slavery right now. Around 15 million people are forcibly displaced for large economic projects, development, and so on every year. That's capitalism. 1 billion people are living in extreme poverty right now. That's extreme poverty. That means it's below the official World Bank poverty threshold of $2 a day. So if you make $3 a day, that doesn't include you. 854 million people are undernourished today because food prices are too high. That's capitalism. Over 2 billion people lack access to essential medicines due to high costs. That's capitalism. I mean, I could go on. And like I said, the World Bank set the international poverty line at around $2 a day. And anyone earning anything above that is technically considered to have been lifted out of poverty. So yes, if you make just $2.50 per day, capitalism has rescued you.
Capitalism has rescued you. Yes, sirree. History Bob. History Bob. Bob Baruni. Ruby Dooby. Here we go.
Regarding the Israeli strike in Doha, how much time or how much of a heads up did the U.S. get, and does the president support the strike?
Sure. Well, I have a statement to read for all of you with respect to the Israeli strike in Doha, and here it is. This morning, the Trump administration was notified by the United States military that as Israel was attacking Hamas, which very unfortunately was located in a section of Doha, the capital of Qatar. Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States that is working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel or America's goals. However, eliminating Hamas, who have profited off the misery of those living in Gaza, is a worthy goal. President Trump immediately directed Special Envoy Witkoff to inform the Qataris of the impending attack, which he did. The president views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly about the location of this attack. President Trump wants all of the hostages in Gaza and the bodies of the dead released, and this war to end now. President Trump also spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu after the attack. The Prime Minister told President Trump that he wants to make peace, and quickly. President Trump believes this unfortunate incident could serve as an opportunity for peace. The president also spoke to the Emir and Prime Minister of Qatar and thanked them for their support and friendship to our country. He assured them that such a thing will not happen again on their soil.
To be clear, the president disagrees with the location of the strike, and did he pass that along to the Prime Minister Netanyahu?
The president just confirmed that in the statement that I just read to you.
1980. When Magnum started. That was...
Yesterday, 4 of our soldiers were killed by Hamas terrorists in Gaza, and 6 Israeli civilians were brutally murdered in a bus stop in Jerusalem. This morning, Hamas proudly took credit for both of these actions. At noon today, I convened the heads of Israel's security organizations and authorized a surgical precision strike on the terrorist chiefs of Hamas.
An extraordinary further escalation in the Middle East war, with Israel bombing Hamas leaders in their faraway Qatar homes, an act Qatar has described as cowardly and a clear breach of international law, but which Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says was a targeted...
Israel has launched an attack on Doha, Qatar, targeting the political leadership of the militant group Hamas. Now, Qatar's come out strongly condemning this strike that apparently happened when Hamas leaders were talking about a ceasefire deal now on the table over the Israel-Hamas war in the Gaza Strip. Israel has been threatening to launch a new offensive on Gaza City. We still don't know just how many people were hurt or killed in this attack, but it marks the second time that Qatar, an energy-rich nation on the Arabian Peninsula, has been targeted during the Mideast wars that came from Hamas's initial October 7th, 2023 attack on Israel. Back in June, Iran launched an attack on a Qatari airbase home to U.S. airmen over the Americans bombing Iranian nuclear sites. But this time, this is different. The Qataris have come out strongly against Israel. We've also seen regional countries like the United Arab Emirates also say that they back Qatar in this. So this likely will further strain the relationships that Israel has with the Gulf Arab countries, which it's been so desperate to try to make diplomatic recognition deals with, and likely is going to cause more tension in the wider Middle East as this offensive looms.
Good morning. We are just learning about the Israeli attacks in Qatar, a country that has been playing a very positive role to achieve a ceasefire and release of all hostages. I condemn this flagrant violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Qatar. All parties must work towards achieving a permanent ceasefire, not destroying it. Today's
So, kids, can't you see how this is just a soap opera? And, the itinerant death happens to the innocent others, right? Always the innocent others. The people caught in a crossfire, right? So, so whatever you see on the, the internet here, it's just, and Donnie, coming out for, he loves the smell of burning immigrants in the morning in Chicago. It's like.
Watch what sweet potatoes do to sciatic nerve pain.
Ouch.
If you have sciatic nerve pain, there's three.
Regarding the Israeli strike in Doha, how much time or how much of a heads up did the U.S. get, and does the president support the strike?
Sure. Well, I have a statement to read for all of you with respect.
MAGA continues to cover up the Jeffrey Epstein case, and today we are joined by Spencer Kuven. He's an attorney who has represented 9 survivors of Jeffrey Epstein for over 20 years. Counselor, thank you so much for joining us at iHip News today. This is just breathtaking, what is happening to these survivors of this horrific child predator.
It's awful. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready, because the world as you knew it just changed overnight. And I don't mean in some abstract, slow, evolutionary way. I'm talking about a rupture, a shock, the kind of shift that shakes economies, politics, and societies all at once. You wake up in the morning, turn on
Wake up in the morning, blah, 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 blah.
what was stable yesterday is gone today. And that is where we stand right now. What happened? A global realignment of power, money, and influence. The world economy is no longer the same engine it was even a week ago. Markets tremble, currencies fluctuate, and alliances fracture.
Same as it ever
Tremors
was.
strike ordinary people.
Same as it ever was. This has been going on since before Babylon, right? But with Donnie, we are seeing these shock waves happen like every 20 seconds. And what he's trying to do is just push everyone into a traumatic shock. So when the real rock and roll starts to happen, right? When you go to spend that dollar bill in your pocket and it's not worth anything, right? Your face is your credit card. And if you join right now, it's a closeout sale. You're ready to sell your soul. Go ahead, But people have already sold their soul. So that's where we're at. I think I put a lot of stuff down here. So let's pick up where we left off yesterday and see if it gets to be here. So Jamie asked me yesterday to talk about the men in black and who are they, what are they doing, etc. Right? And I gave, I went into my, Donnie has the weave, well, I have the smorgasbord, right? Because I tell a story that goes, very close to what Cliff High was earlier talking about, that electromagnetic flux, and that how it seemingly, like when you put north and north together, they repel each other. When you put north to south, they attract, right? Opposites attract. But with Ampere's right-hand law, right? Where's my right hand? Here's my right hand. So here is the EMF flux, right? And here is the way the magnetic flux, the current is. So here's the magnetic, here's the current, right? And so that's when Ampere had it was Ohm's law, right? Ohm is a measurement of work being done, right? Got a 100-watt light bulb, and that's a watt, right? And so when it's on and it's burning 100 watts, right? And it's burning it at 110 voltage. So you divide the watts into the voltage, and that's how many amps you got. So you got 100 watts into 110, so just say 100. So you're burning basically 10 amps, right? Or 1 amp. 1 amp, 10 amps, one or the other. I was never good at division. Anyway, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. Here we are at 1 hour, 00 minutes, and 00 seconds. There's one of you left, 4 thumbs up. And remember, that's me, your grad here, Sensie Owl Bob, telling the stories. And don't believe a word I say. Don't even believe anything the internet says. No, it's all fake news. Come on. Let's get real here, kids. So let's see. What time is it? 3:30. Okay, how much juice is left in this guy? Oh, 39%. Anyway, and there's probably about 70% left in this sucker. But all my devices, my laptop is, and my tablet that I'm using this on is a little wobbly, and that's over there. So anyway, to the story. So as I was saying, that my whole life, if I have any great, oh, well, Bob is a genius. No, I'm a smart, cheeky monkey. That's what I am. Al Bob is this, Al Bob. No. If Al Bob has any real talent, or gift, is to be in the right place at the right time and understand the dynamics. And to understand the dynamics of any situation, of the minute, of the moment, you have to have a number of things working for you. First of all, you have to serve somebody. You have to be someone's servant, right? Now, I do more than serve. I am a doula. And in Greek, that means slave, right? And when you are a slave to love's co-creation, and that is the great creator, not the number one, not the demigods, not the Nephilim or any of those guys. Where in King James, in the beginning, and in the beginning all things were dark. What is that? What is that darkness? It means it was nighttime. Why do the Hebrews basically have their service from Friday night into Saturday, right? Why is Seder then? Because they serve. Their God is the moon, not the sun. Christianity, we basically have the sun God, Jesus Christ. He's the Son, right? The Father, the Son, Holy Ghost. So, and he is the light, right? God is the light, not the darkness. Now, if you look at Buddhism and Eastern, you have the yin-yang symbol, the circle, that's the circle of life, right? And then you have this kind of, S that separates the white side from the black side. Now, the white side isn't just, white people, and the black side is the black people. No, because in that black side, there's a white dot, and in the white side, there's a black dot. So what is that S? That is the snake. Who's the snake? Satan. This world is Satan's world. But hey, didn't God make everything? Yes. Doesn't God be the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end? Yes. Doesn't God know everything about you, before you were even born? Yes. Doesn't God know everything that you're going to do and how you're going to do it? Yes. So why is God a punishing God? If God knows everything about you, he knows you're going to screw up, right? He knows exactly what you're going to do, right? But God, if you have faith, I have faith in God. No. Sorry, Chuckles. No, you don't have faith in God. God has faith in you. Otherwise, you would not exist. What you need to do is not just serve God. I serve God. I go to church once a week and I fall asleep by, and I put something on the plate, Jesus said, how you treat the other. If you treat the other poorly, that's how you're treating me. Jesus said, you have eyes to see, but you do not see. Meaning you look at that other, oh, he's stinky. Oh, he's not one of us. Oh, I have this bias against, people who are down on their luck. I'm just going to step on them. I'm going to run my car over them. That's I'm a good Christian. I'm getting rid of that smelly, stinky guy. I don't think so. Rich man asked you, so Jesus, how do I get to heaven? And what did Jesus say? Give all your wealth to the poor and be poor in garment, meaning the physical sense, the money, your house, your car, give that away and be rich in spirit. So what are you guys doing? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland, 1 hour and 5 minutes and 55 seconds. I love when that happens. And there's only one of you there. It's probably AI. Hello, AI. You're a good puppy. Who's the good puppy? Who's the good puppy? You are AI. You're a good puppy. Yes. Yeah. And 4 thumbs up. Thanks for that. And I would start going. Most of my shows are on my channel. Just kind of go there and just go all the way back 7-8 years, about 2,500 shows. And just it's like go to Las Vegas. You put your finger on the channel and you go whoop, and it goes blub, 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 and stop at one. Hit it, watch it for a few seconds. If it looks interesting, watch it for a few more seconds. If it looks interesting, watch it for a minute. Keeps interesting you, go on, right? If you get past 5 minutes, stick that little thumb drive into your device and download my show. All my shows can be downloaded. Back in the day when we had a really vibrant cadre, when we'd get 20, 30, 100 people talking on the show, and they would, they would stop talking to me and talk to each other, right? And then, one of you would say, hey, Al, what about this? And I would, every 10, 15 minutes, I go back and look what you guys were saying. And when I could see that you guys were talking amongst yourselves, I'd be fine. But then there'd be 1 or 2, hey, what about this? Right? Just like Jamie, dumpster saved my life in the winter in Calgary. Great food, frozen gourmet. Yes, exactly. That's what dumpsters do. I had restaurants. I had a dumpster restaurant called the Ear Inn. I didn't. My partner was Richie, and he had the checkbook, so he did that. But I was the dumpster chef. I mean, just because the meat district was only 6 blocks up West Street. I'd just take a grocery cart up there and go to the dumpster and get whole sides of cow, And I would go a little further down to where the egg and butter district was, and there was whole wheels of cheese, covered in wax. And yeah, it was covered in mold and crap, but you take it, you cut it in half, and like 90% of that cheese was still 100% yummy. That little mold gave it a little zip, And I've lived that way. I was tutored by a great man called Adam Purple. You should go check that. Go online, see who Adam Purple is. Really. And so our whole movement of taking over abandoned buildings and putting homeless people in them. And because I had an electrician's license, I brought them up to snuff, right? And show you a picture. Let's see if I can find them. Oh, what did I do with it? Knock it off. Oh, here are my glasses. That's good. What did I do with it? I knew I had it someplace. It was right here. What happened to it? What happened to it? Well, that's what always happens. And when it's right there, and then when you need it, it disappears. And then when you don't need it, it reappears. No. That's how it works. Oh, here we go. I'll show you. So anyway, we're going to zip through this book. So there's my school. There's a school that was built by the Russian and Swedish artists, Inga and George, and they suffered through World War II. They were, being chased by the American army. They were the other. George and Inga were the other. And they survived it, right? And now Johnny Boy bought it from, there's my dad, the Colonel. Can you see him? Oh, there he is. That's him around 93. This is my mom at 100. And this is their relationship. My mom is the Admiral of the Navy. Look at that face, a determination. She knows what she's doing. My dad, little trepidous back there, right? Here's Christine, the smartest human on earth at the time, 1984. There's Jack, our dog. We found him. He was chained to a tree and he was strangling. And basically I had to do a little cutting on Jack to get the chain around it, but he was strangling himself, right? And he was really freaking out. And Christine just went over there, and she was not a dog girl, and she just pet him and said, "It's okay, we're going to free you, you're going to be okay," right? And so, and here's Jack. And I bought this beach, 100 acres beach, for about 60 grand. And I was going to build rich people houses on it. It was right next to Southampton. It was in a place called the Mauritius. And Jack, he loved us. We saved his life. We nursed him back to life. And there's a dog that's in Brussels. I forgot what they call them, but they are the most unbelievable military dog. Because look at him. He doesn't look like much. He's a little guy, but they are unbelievably disciplined and trained, but you have to train them in a certain way. It's like in their DNA. And part of it is, so he was relatively young. He probably wasn't more than a year old, and somebody realized that he could, it looked like somebody who was fighting dogs. And when they couldn't, traumatize him into obedience, because that's not how you do it with these dogs. He was trying to kill them, and so they just chained him to a tree. And he got so freaked out, he twisted himself so around that he was like, and we couldn't just untangle him. We had to cut him out of it. And we couldn't, it was like stainless steel chain, couldn't, and it was a bolt that was, tightened all the way down and then snapped. And so I didn't have the tools to cut stainless steel, and he had no time. So I went in my car and I had some X-Acto knives, and I just did a little surgery on him so I could get the chain around his neck off. And once once I started doing it, the first cut, he could breathe. And he kind of realized, okay, yeah, this guy's cutting me, but now I can breathe. And so he stopped. And he just looked into Christine's eyes. They had this eye thing going on. Just take a look at Jack. This is Jack. He's sitting in her lap. He always sat in her lap, because this is how we found him on a tree. He was down on the ground, twisted all around, and she put him in her lap. And he was like wanting to kill anything. And again, Christine was not a dog. I'm a dog boy. She wasn't. She's a computer, right? And she invented AI. She was if you've ever seen a movie that was made by Pixar and their logo is that lamp, when she was 16, they had computer graphics. They had make an algorithm for each frame of the movie. That's like $1 zillion. What she did was she created one algorithm that you could plug every frame into the movie. So she designed a graphic algorithm, digital, because the first computer graphics were analog, the Rudd Etra synthesizer, a piece of crap. But anyway, they did the logo for ABC. That was, whoop-de-doo. They got a lot of whoop-de-doo from that. And Christine was just, she was 16. She had already gone through college by the time she was 16. She was at Stanford, going through their computer they didn't even have a computer graphics department. She and this other woman, Louise Etra, Bozo Etra's wife. And Louise was sharper. So these two girls were it, right? And so Christine developed this algorithm. That was every bit of computer graphics you see today stems. She's the grandma of that, right? She started SIGGRAPH, computer graphics, blah, blah, blah. But it's part of the IEEE. She's first woman on the IEEE, what's her name? The movie star, Ida Lupino. She invented Bluetooth back during World War II. You ever hear that? Go look up Ida Lupino and say electrical engineer. And they'll go into like all the stuff she did. But just because she was gorgeous, had great tits, she became a movie star and everyone knew her as that. And that wasn't really her name. She was like the female Nikola Tesla. And there have been millions, thousands of people of this. Like all the stuff invented in America was mostly invented by Black people and women because they were doing the work, especially in the South. Like a good example is the McCormick Reaper and the cotton gin, because the Black folk were the guys out in the fields doing the work. Like the cotton gin is a great example because to pick the cotton from that plant, the gin part would rip you up of that plant, right? So your hands would all, and then the blood would go all over the cotton, and that wasn't good. So this Black guy invented a way to throw the cotton in, and it was a barrel, and you just kind of turn the crank, and it separated the cotton from the razor blades part of the plant. Black guy. And the patent was done, written up by a woman whose father was a lawyer. And so she was, she did all the lawyering work for her father, and then he married it off to a landed gentry guy who had tons of cotton, did nothing. He just had slaves, and had white guys whipping the slaves, and they had Black men, being, if you ever saw the movie The Django, that movie explains really, really well what slavery in America was, right? And it's an interesting thing because you look at the Heart of Darkness, which described what the Dutch did in Africa in a very short period. England and France and other people were in Africa and Asia extracting, but the Dutch went in there in a big way, and like a 70-year period, killed like 100 million Africans, for gold and diamonds. And then the market didn't support it, so they left, right? And like in South Africa, the Afrikaners were the ones who, stuck around, and they were Dutch and German, right? So anyway, so the Men in Black, right? The Men in Black is this, if you were to watch a show called Dark Journalist. It's on Fridays, right? And that guy has a great show. It's usually starts on sometime 8 or 9 and goes to when they get tired of doing it. It's usually 2 or 3 hours. And he is a great journalist. Now he does have his bias, and as we all do. And if you understand your own bias, because we all have them, but if you understand it, it's a lens that you can look through and see what's on the other side. And because you understand it, you're not overpowered by it. You're not controlled by it. It's like habits. We all have habits. My favorite habit was eating, so much so that I got to be almost 500 pounds, right? So I died, and I came out the other side, and I was, again, lucky to be in the position I was in that this really rich guy who was my client. He really needed me. He didn't, he needed me so much that he told the doctor, because the doctor said, we need to cut his legs off. We need to cut 20 feet out of his colon. We need to do open heart surgery. And if you let us do it and you pay for it, he'll be good as new in a week. It's like, really? And I kind of woke up. They had me go from the ICU, in the hallway into the operating room. And I had the fentanyl in my arm. And I just, I had enough fentanyl in my arm and Special K that, enough to knock out an elephant. But I woke up and said, what is going on here? And everyone freaked out. One guy fainted, then the nurse pissed herself and ran away. And the doctor, who is the drug doctor, he had to stay there by law. And so he was going, I don't understand. I said, what don't you understand? She was, well, you shouldn't be able to sit up and talk to me. You are ready to be cut up like a piece of bologna. I said, no, I don't want that. I didn't sign anything. You touch me with a knife, I'll own your children. And he goes, but that guy over there, I said, that guy over there is my client. He is not my lawyer. He doesn't have power of attorney. He said he did. Well, he lied. And what are liars but lawyers? So I said, roll me back in that ICU, right? And so they did. I said to the doctor and head nurse in there, I said, okay, what I need is the oxygen up my nose, and I need you to, 89% oxygen, and I need the rest nitrous oxide. So I need you to basically do that right now. And go bring that lawyer in here. And they did. And then I said, this is what I gave him a list of all the kind of people and things I needed. I said, and then I need you to take me out of here and take your hacienda in the Florida Keys and get those people to take care of me for a week. I'll be able to do what you want. And then take me down here. I'll need them for another month. And while I'm here, I need you to have those people. There's the dialysis machine, right? Well, there's another machine that was invented before the dialysis, like back in the 1890s to 1920s, when guys were working in foundries and they were being exposed to really toxic chemicals. And these guys had a lot of skill sets, right? And they were dying like flies because the new, alchemy of metals and plastics were very toxic. And these people would be working on it and they die. And so they realized that they were being poisoned, and they realized it was in their blood and not in their organs. And if they were in that and they started, turning yellow and the eyes yellow and so they would put them on these machines that would take all of their blood and scrub all those metals out of their blood and then put their blood back in, right? At a certain temperature that caused the body to, snap up and get better, and anyway, and this is a technique that's still here, and a lot of hospitals still use it, and most hospitals still have, what is the name of it? There's a name for that. My mother got really sick, and the doctors were totally up the wall, and I did a little homework and got exactly what it was, and I said to her, one doctor said, look, here are all the symptoms she has. Now you're saying it's this, this, and this, but look at this. And he goes, well, that's really old. So I said, there's a place right down the street that does it. You just have to sign the little prescription, for to have the process. And he goes, well, what's there to lose? And I said, that's right. So, and gladly, he had that attitude, right? And so my mom went into it, and she got her blood cleaned, and it was like the guy was, whoa, because it turned her right around. She lived another 20 years for that. She had to do that process, about 6 months, once a week. No big deal, about 3 hours, so sitting in a lazy boy, kind of very similar to what you experience when you have hooked up to a kidney machine. That's just the kidney. This thing does the blood. Anyway, so and the name of the process right on my tongue, I can't think of what it is. Anyway, so she did that, and her pain went away to a great deal. Her inflammation went down. a lot of things. So much so that guy said, I am going to study all of this, and I'm going to buy that place, because it was like in a strip mall right next to the titty bar. So I would like drop my mom off and go off to the titty bar for a couple hours and come back, because they had nice lunch. They had like a open buffet at the titty bar during lunch. And so, and I had a girlfriend who was the head titty bartender. She actually kind of owned it, but she was Ukrainian. And her daddy, not her like figurative daddy, because I was her daddy, her old man, her father was like death. When I was a young boy, I died at birth. I died every year up till when I was 10, when I really died. And every time I died, because when I was 7, I was murdered by a Nazi nun at Hitler's Rifle Squad, HRS, Holy Redeemer School. And Cardinal Cushing took me, I went to a hospital. They were going to do a lobotomy on me, and he just came and got me. And it was so sweet. Him and my Aunt Gracie, my Aunt Wynn, and Dr. Black and her like bodyguard chauffeur came like through the door. I mean, these guys were ready to stick that needle, and they, the black guy just whacked this one nun nurse like into Tomorrowland, and Cardinal Cushing picked me up, and I was a little guy, and he's just looking at me, and little tears were coming down his cheeks, like dropping on my head. And he walked me out of there, and we're in the limo, and he's looking down at me, and everyone's like high on adrenaline, because they had to fight their way up. My Aunt Gracie kicked this one nun, and this nun had testicles, right? You talk about trannies. And they have the Jesuits have a crew of nuns. Remember, don't believe a word I say. This is just for entertainment's sake. But they have a big-boned, big-busted Nazi crew of nuns that have vaginas and penises. I think that's where the porn channel got that. The animated hot Japanese porn stuff, anime? No, that's whatever it is. Anyway, that's it, real. But don't believe a word I say. This is only for entertainment's sake. So, Aunt Gracie kicked this nun, right between the legs, and that normally that might have been uncomfortable, but the way this nun, her eyes popped out of her head, and she shot across the room, and it was like my Aunt Gracie was a football star, because there was this whole concrete wall with one door that was a fire exit, and the nun went flying through the air, hit that panic bar, the door flew open, she went, and you saw her bounce off the wall in the hallway and go down the staircase. Boom, 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 bam, bam, smash, crash, boom, bam, boom, 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 and the door kind of slowly closed. And so the Cardinal had me in the arms. The Dr. Black is like taking care of me. Aunt Wynn and the football playing black sergeant of New York City Police Department is like fighting off all the other Nazi nuns, and Aunt Wynn is holding the door of the elevator, and we all get in there. We go down to where the underground parking thing, and the chauffeur guy has got the motor running. We all get into Cardinal Cushing's chauffeur, and it's got the Vatican license plates on it, but those Nazis were coming out of everywhere, and we take off and we fly up the thing through the air. They got the guardrail there, and the car flies over those killer strips and smashes through the thing, and we're out on 8th Avenue, and we go flying to 7th Avenue, and we fly down and turn where the RKO Rockefeller Center is, and go into the Bat Tunnel into the Vatican St. Patrick's. And while that was all going on, I was in this state, and there were men in black watching the nuns coming at me with the ice pick from my eyeballs, and the door flies open, Aunt Gracie and the black sergeant, and then we're in, in the elevator. There were two men in black there, right? And they looked, and I've seen Death my whole life, right? And Death looks like him. He wears a black outfit. That's kind of like the kind of outfit that a guy from a funeral home wears, all black, right? White shirt, black tie, black everything, black socks, black shoes, black hat. But this guy's head looked like a pumpkin, and he had like chiclets for teeth. And he always smiled. And I remember one time when I was 10 in Florida, another time, that was the last time I got sick. I said, screw this. When Aunt Gracie and my mom came in and screamed at everyone and took me away, because they were going to, kill me and serve me. It was like Easter, and they were going to like turn me into the sacrificial lamb. Those Catholics, with their ceremonies, you got to watch out for those guys. But pretty much every religion has their off the hook sacrifice. I mean, look at what's going on in the Mideast. Look what Israel is doing. And again, these guys aren't the chosen folk, and they are just people who feel they've been wronged. Meaning, not the Palestinians. I'm talking about the guys who have the jet bombers that the U.S. has given them, that has all the weapons the U.S. has given to them, that has all the technology the U.S. has given to them. And it's not those people who are manipulating our government. We are manipulating, and again, we aren't doing, U.S. America isn't doing the stuff we're doing. My friend there who's going on about how America does all this imperialist stuff and kills all these people, all true. But America is the vehicle. Just like they changed the name, our military has been known since, 1776 as the War Department. And then in 1947, with the, National Security Act of 1947, we changed everything. We turned it into the Defense Department. Because, we're having defense. We're defending ourselves. Yeah, we're going to, kill everyone, but it's because we're defending ourselves. Again, that's not all of that death, right? That guy described, and he gave all the numbers, and, go to the beginning of this and watch it. Again, if you didn't really get it. But that's not us per se, because what is us? What is the we in the United States? We aren't imperial. We are people who are coming. We are the immigrants. We're an immigrant country. And so the population are immigrants. And if you watch the movie, you got to watch the movie Gangs of New York, because it really, 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 really shows it. Because the beginning is this Dutch guy who's like crazy and nuts, and his family was the first people here, and where the people made all the deals with the Iroquois, and they were became the Gilded Edge folk, and then the other immigrants, and they brought them here because the black folk, first of all, back in the day, the first slaves that came over were the pilgrims, were the people who were coming here for religious freedom. No, and they came here because they wanted to get out of the prisons, the deading prisons in Europe, and they came to America as as debtor. Now they would say, okay, you go to America and you work for 5 years for us, and you'll get 10 acres and a mule, and then you can make your big dream in America. And that's the American dream, right? And so, but that never happened. 5 years go by. Well, you got another 5 years. Well, America's gigantic. So they've been there. They got a lay of the land. They kind of knew what it is. There are a lot of books that have been written about the maps of America. And what did George Washington do in his 20s and 30s? He was a map maker. He went out into where nobody was, and he said this lake, and he said, okay, I want this part, I'm going to call this Virginia, it's mine, right? It's past, it's the king doesn't even know it exists. So I'm going to go past the part of what, so I'm going to take this, right? And, Jefferson did it and all those guys did it, right? So that's our heritage, thieves, criminals, lying, cheats, rapists, all those bad dudes, that Donald Trump's talking about, all those bad dudes. We're going to go after the bad dudes. What is ICE picking up? But, mommy and daddy just eking out a living so the kids can have a chance in America. They're born in America. They're going to public school in America. Well, the mommy and daddy get swept up, right? And getting deported. So we're going to leave the kids behind. No, they go out the country too. So good kids. I mean, hey, this is on your nickel, guys. This is on your nickel. When you go up to heaven, you Christians, but I did everything you said. I read all those books, all you Jews. Oh, the Torah, I was like totally there. I got my little thing nipped. I did everything you said. I killed as many people as, at the barbecue. It's like I did what you said, The closest thing to a real Christian is a Muslim. I know you don't want to hear that, but I'd like to see some Christians pray 5 times a day. Love to see it. Right. So there's only one of you left. So come on, that's AI. So AI, you know everything. How you doing? How am I wrong? Right. Tell me. But remember, guys. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. Hey, I am your Sensie Owl Bob here. You're glad to tell you stories, and that's all this is. This is one just gigantic story. Don't believe a word I say. It's not true. It's fake news. It's all fake news. It's fake news. It's fake. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? It's fake news. Oh. When you are kicked out of your house, when you are chained and sent to, but I'm not, I'm white. I'm white. You can't do this. I voted for him. You can't do. It's fake news. It's not real. It's, I love to smell the burning Chicago in the morning. It's fake news. Good luck with it, kids. And when you see that other on the street being swept away, what are you going to do? Like today, what did I do? I went and I live out in a very white part of Tennessee. And the rich people, all the cockroaches, Californians, Floridians, Texans, people from Charlotte, they bought up all the property. They're on that lake, Watauga Lake, about 20 miles over there. A really big TVA lake. They have all these rules. You can't build houses on it, can't do this on it. Someone got paid. Then we had this gigantic event that basically we had about 16,000 remnants of the holler folk. Well, they're all dead. Right now, there's probably 1,600 homeless people living in the woods that, within a 5-mile radius of where I am right now. All the roads are smashed up. No one get anywhere. So I went to, every Thursday when I go and visit our community center, I go get big, hefty-duty, a box of hefty-duty contractor garbage bags, and I, take 2 of those bags and I throw the box of those bags into one of those bags, and then I go where we got all the food, up, and I get all the food that has a pop top, right? And I get they have the kind of throwaway plastic spoons, and they also have like sturdy plastic spoons that don't get thrown away, that you can, put in a dishwasher or wash it off, right? And so back when we had hundreds of those, I took a couple of bags and I have them in the car here. So I drive around when I try to stay here at the Deep Green most of the time. This whole summer it's been beautiful, gorgeous. I just watch the grass grow, so and I'm kind of sifting through my stuff. Anyway, so I at least twice I have to go see a doctor or take care of this or take care of that. And like on Thursdays, I go get this stuff. So what I do, I know there's 4 places, 2 by the lake, because police do not go and hassle people unless they can drive right up to the door, right? if they can't drive, they don't, so it's a ton of people living out in these woods, right? And the roads that have been big boulders rolled up so you can't even get close to them. So what I do usually, especially around the lake, there's two places on either side where the big boulders have been placed there. And you walk in maybe a quarter of a mile, and there's a big parking lot, and there's a boat ramp. That's used to be a boat ramp, but the rich people don't want people to use it. There's two other boat ramps, that's in the national park part of this place, of the Cherokee National Forest. And all of that, because it's Cherokee National Forest, is going to be turned into one gigantic Las Vegas because the Indians can do it. They can, they've been bought off, right? So they're going to have 800 room gambling casinos. They already have one. They have one in, starts with a B. It's where the racetrack is. It's where the home of country music started. What's it called? It'll pop into my mind. But it's right off of 81, right on the border of Virginia and Tennessee. Anyway, in that race, right next to the racetrack, there used to be condos that you could buy for the racetrack aficionados who were like, I have to see my race. So it was built like right across the street from the racetrack. And the racetrack, the thing that houses about 20,000 people is this way. So you could stay in your apartment and be like less than a half a mile from the races. And it goes right and around, right? So the gambling guys bought that and they built a kind of, something higher and took out 2 floors on the bottom. And the casino's down there. Bristol is the name. So there's a casino in Bristol, and that's like, they're trying it out there, right? And so, but they bought all the property and they've like made all the rights away and all that kind of stuff. So there's two places that they don't really want the folk to go, but the homeless people are there. And that those guys, I'm going in to like bulldoze everything down to do it, but they block so people can't go in there. They can't use that ramp. And there's a little beach there too. And so that's all blocked off. So during the summer, the homeless people, there's about 500 of them that live back into that woods by deep, you'd have to walk in or ride a horse in. And not too many police around here have horses. So anyway, but when it's a nice day and there's nobody, hassling them there, they go there, right? And they hang out on the beach and, try to have a life. And they have little boats that they take over to where there is a boat ramp there. And the boat ramp there has a nice bathroom, right? And it has, right next to that ramp, there is a campsite run by the parks, department. And there are showers there, right? And the people who run that stuff come from here and kind of know those people. So they look the other way. And there's close to them, there's another one of these like places where the hibachis are and people can go and make that. And they got a nice bathroom. And in the winter, the guy who runs this neck of the woods, he actually, everything's supposed to be locked down. But and because those toilets don't run on water, they're dry toilets, and they're compost toilets. That's really what they are. So he keeps them open, right? And he has access to, like we do, packs of 32 bottles of water. So in that bathroom, because it stays warm enough for it not to freeze, right? Because there's this little solar heat on the ceiling and no, there are no moving parts, no electricity. It just keeps, it's 20 degrees outside. Inside that bathroom, it's like 40. So when it gets really cold, I've gone over there and found like, this thing is like maybe, 15 feet by 15 feet. It's got stalls. On the back wall, there's like 8 stalls, right? And there are sinks that do have, like not water from a pipe, but catchment from the roof, right? So they have that. And so I've gone over there like really cold times and, fences down. I mean, you close, you can't drive in, but you can park right there. and walk along the grass and over the hill and down. And I'd walk in there and found, 60 people packed in there because it's 40 degrees rather than 20 degrees outside. So there's about 1,600 folk around here, and it's going to be interesting because they all got guns. Now, they're not using them. They're not going crazy, but they're staying on the outside. Then there's a whole bunch of Hispanic folk who were here working in the farms and working for the contractors, maybe about 3,000. Now, they have gone deep in. So in April and May, before I had my heart thing, before we stopped having, we were open 24/7 for 7 weeks, right? And then we closed. We did it, 7 days a week, but like from 8 in the morning till about 4. And then we did Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And then we got rid of Tuesday and just did Thursday and Saturday because people work. So Saturday was for the people who work. And the people who had a job and things got back to somewhat of a normal didn't come anymore because they could go to Walmart. They could go to, the supermarket. So, because that first 7 weeks that we were 24/7, we had everybody, rich people, and we gave whatever. But when the rich people were saying, "Oh, that's an expensive thing. I'm going to take 3 pairs of those shoes," I said, "No. Now, if you were a poor guy with 3 kids, yes. But you're a rich guy, sorry." And I would tell them right to their face, right? And some of the ladies with the clipboards, "Well, if those poor people get 3," I said, "Yeah, but they got 6 kids, This clown, well, he has 2 kids." I said, "Yeah, but he's making $100,000 a year. He's got 4 houses, one in Florida, one in..." No. And that's what I would do. I just say, "No, not going to do that." "But who put you in charge?" I said, "Fine, I'll leave." No, don't leave. You do things we don't do and we don't know how to do. And don't leave. Okay. And that's what I did for 7 weeks. Right? I didn't run the thing. I mean, there are about 8 people on the board who, but I knew all the really rich people. When we needed $100,000, I went to this old lady and said, "So you went to school at this place? You grew up here. You were you are a holler person. Your daddy, took the logs out of these forests with horses, and you married a guy who was really smart, and he turned it into a multi-million-dollar enterprise, right? Now he's dead, and you run it, and you're a smart girl, and you made even more money than your husband. So," she goes, "How much you want?" And she had Men in Black in her house. Men in Black are so if you watch, Dark Journalist, he talks about a lot of stuff, right? And a lot of the stuff is real. When he talks about the assassination of Kennedy, when he talks about COG, continuation of government, when he talks about how everything changed with the, National Security Act of 1947 that brought on, CIA, the NSA, and all the other alphabet soup guys. He's really good at that. And he talks about this thing called Extratet. That's the Men in Black. And now it's not like the movie with, where they're nice and cute little guys, taking care of the aliens that are coming to our... No, they're there. The aliens were here before us. We were made by the aliens, so... Oh, now there's 2 people watching. Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensie Owl Bob. And I'm happy to be here. And if you watch me from the beginning and saw my friend talk about what everything is, and that's what I do. I do screenshots of pretty interesting stuff. Like Cliff Hyde was talking about basically Ampere's insights, right? That he had insights. Tesla had visions and then made technology, right? So, and this technology has been here. It's just all the time, and that's, the story about the Tower of Babel, right? Well, yeah, they made a tall tower, but it was an energy device. They were fighting a war, and they were fighting a war against the gods, the demigods, right? And so they built a pretty, amazing piece of technology, and they used it, and all hell broke loose. What happened was the home planet of the demigods was in our solar system, but it was a big planet, not too big, not too small. We were the Goldilocks planet where anything could grow here. You could make anything have life here, right? But the mother planet, which was maybe 30% bigger than us, but it was just the right place in the orbit around sun where it did basically the same thing. It was hot, warm enough, it allowed things to grow. It allowed life to be there. Other planets, you want to live on Saturn, that, its atmosphere is sulfuric acid, things like that. Jupiter, the pressure is like 18 zillion tons per square inch, so you're like a rock person. Now there's consciousness in all these planets because everything has a consciousness. Now we have been placed here and manufactured. This little mud puppet here is our avatar for our soul, and our soul is a different kind of soul, and so it is the the covenant. We are the covenant, and so we are the covenant of love's co-creation. We are the mirror to the Alpha and the Omega, so it can have a perspective on what it's doing, because it's a work in progress also. So that's what makes us special. We're a work in progress. The demigods, they are it. That's it. Satan is it. That's what he is, or it is. And but love's co-creation is this work in progress, right? Now the other things why they are stuck into what they are is that this game has been going on for a zillion years, right? And the great creating force of the universe, love's co-creation is that, but it again it is the younger part of that. So that's why it's here, and that's why this planet is the way it is. It is the Garden of Eden. Now we fuck it up. We're killing it. We're destroying it. And that's part of Satan's, well, you could eat from that fruit. It's not going to kill you. It will after a certain time. And there's always a cost, right? Now, love's co-creation has faith in us, right? Because we are it. We are the we and me. We are in the me of love's co-creation. And that's why we're the covenant, the ark. We are the ark. And the relationship is the covenant. So we are the ark of the covenant, right? So all of this stuff, if you read all the sacred books, and most people don't, they just take a little slice of the pie, and that's what it is. That's the word of God, Sorry. The word of God is how you live your life, right? So if you are, 10 Commandments, so up until up until Exodus, we had no laws, no rules, no nothing. Everyone's making it up as they go, right? If you read, so the Hebrew tribes had 3 books, right? The Torah, the Talmud, and the Kabbalah, right? Torah is the everyday book, and it's for us slugs, right? It's for everyone to read. And that word Torah, through Greek into English, that translates to you suck. And if you read the Torah, it basically, pretty much everything there is like God going on about. That's why God is the wrong noun to use, because that God is somebody else. It's not love's co-creation. It's like, the war in Ukraine. It's the war of the two Vlads. The Russian Vlad, the Ukraine Vlad. Ukraine Vlad is a TV host, game show host, a stand-up comedian. And the Russian Vlad is basically a psychopath bagman. That's all he was. He was carrying the cash for the people in power. And that's what he's doing still today. So he talks about peace and then bombs the crap out of Ukraine's capital, right? And Ukraine, has Heathkit drones knocking the Russian shit out of the sky, but they can't really do it till it gets into their bubble. So the Heathkit drones can just knock them, run into them, right? And so those things that have 200 kilograms of a high explosive get hit and you're knocked out of the sky, so it doesn't hit specific target, but it falls down and smashes into an apartment building or a library or just a car, and that's why, for these 3 going on 4 years, Russia has killed maybe, innocent citizens, maybe somewhere between 10 and 30,000, right? And it probably killed somewhere between 60 and 150,000 soldiers, right? And there's probably maybe 150,000, wounded, but, missing legs and blinded and, messed up. So their life ain't going to be what it was before they got messed up. But in Russia, they have over 1 million dead and wounded. And Ukraine isn't going after the population like the Russians are going after the population, because Russians think if they make everyone's life suck, that they will rebel against the government that's fighting the war. But no, I guess they don't know Ukrainian temperament very well, because I grew up in Manhattan, in Harlem, 2nd Avenue. It was like, 100 blocks, 60 blocks. Of every 2 blocks was a different European white nation, Polish, Lithuanian, Estonian, Russian, Ukrainian, you name it. And not only that, there are lots of different types of those people. So there are lots, right? PS 127, that was near Columbia. That was our school. And it was a great school because it was run by all those people. It wasn't real, it was the building, the city owned it, the state owned it, right? It was I forget what they call it, but it was a, like special school, not like for dummies, but like really smart people. And that school had 120 languages spoken in it. And half those kids could speak all those, could speak everything. So half the kids who came out of that became, diplomats, and they came from the poorest of the poor. Yes, they were all white, but, because it was being run by teachers, people learning to be teachers at Columbia and studying psychology, sociology, and all that stuff. And they were doing it, training on us. So we had pretty good education. And my grandma, I wasn't even there. They had a kindergarten, Mrs. Gerling, right? So when I was 4, so I would go around with my grandma all the time, right? Well, no matter what she was doing, I was like, oh, she did that. So she would wear me out. So when we went home, I'd just go to sleep at 5 in the afternoon and wake up at 5 in the morning, just so she could, read a book, listen to the radio, go to sleep and not be bothered by me. But the other side of the coin is, if I ever was in that thing, she would just take me upstairs to Mrs. Green, who was the woman who breastfed me for my whole life. Even when I was 4, if I was discontent, because Mrs. Green always had kids, being breastfed, right? And so the daughter that had her being breastfed was my age. She was about 2-3 months older than me. Emily, she was like my sister. That's why I'm African American. That's a melanin challenged, right? So I've had all this amazing exposure, right? Now this could be the foundation, and has been, of what America is. But the white power structure that just wants it white and to lie about everything that it is. Oh, it could be woke. And that whole woke thing, right? Well, before it was that, it was something else. And then it was, and it's all based on people complaining about, what, someone has taken something away from them, right? Whereas those kids who came to Harlem in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, they never complained about something they didn't have. They were unbelievable grateful for what they had. And that was the foundation of what the Renaissance of Harlem was about. Because it wasn't just black people. Because, you know, all the white people on 2nd Avenue, black people were in the middle, like on Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard, and the people on the west side, near Grant's Tomb, they were what we used to call Caribbean. Anybody who was kind of tan, you know, Mexicans, Asians, and there was Chinatown downtown, but uptown there were a lot of Asians, of every kind of Asian, you know, not just Chinese, but, you know, Vietnamese and you name the Asian, they were there. So, and that was the beauty of that whole thing. It wasn't a melting pot. It was a salad bowl of all these separate flavors on top of each other and making an amazing cultural salad. And that's why New York City was a pretty amazing cultural place. That's why you had the fashion industry there, why you had the music and entertainment business there, right? And why you had the investment business there. It all, you know, depended on that diversity. Now that we are weeding that out, now that we have ICE taking that all away, that's one of the vehicles they're using to destroy the beauty and dynamic of this. Now, all of the things like DEI, and there were other things before it, you know, and in the 80s, that's when I was the itinerant, 80s and 90s, I was the itinerant scholar. And I worked, I was a, you know, contractor. I worked for myself. I don't work for anybody. But I would be contracted by all these different people. And I got my chops in that way, you know, with my grandma, seeing all this culture, all this dynamic, you know, going to Mrs. Girling's class and having 20 different kids speak 20 different languages. And I learned a little French, a little German, a little Greek, a little this, a little of that. And certain parts of how that, the language, the vocabulary, I had this ear. This one does this, not this one. This is like radar. This one is the one I suss people out with. I listen to them, right? And that's what I do. You see me telling stories, but mostly if you guys were to, you know, communicate in the chat, we would be, when I first started doing that, it was mostly chat, not so much my stories. I did, meaning I would just go off into the hinterlands with the stories, and people would be listening to them, and how they did it. They all came for the story, like the old crone story, right? And the story about Jimi Hendrix, and the story about this, and the story about that. And like, you know, Johnny Boy. So those stories were on Johnny's channel, and people would. And why he kept throwing me out, I would tell these stories. We'd have 70,000 people listening to the story. And Johnny would interrupt, you know, and try to put himself out and pretend he was some, you know, character, you know, his multiple personalities would pop in. And they'd tell him to shut the fuck up. You know, just, we want to hear Al, shut you, you know. And he would stop doing it. He would get rid of me. He would, fuck you, get out, right? And he would throw me out. And he normally would bust into the place at 3 a.m. with a hammer in his hair and just go, get out, right? Now, the first time he did it when he had a, you know, he wanted a blowjob in the worst of ways, and I wasn't going to do it. But so he got a Russian bride, right, sent to him, you know, like his food, just, you know, like the supermarket sends his food up to him and everything. He never goes out for anything. Everything is delivered to him, right? Well, that's going to stop relatively soon. The internet's going. And so that's why I'm telling you guys, you better put these things on a thumb drive. And the one person who did it religiously, and I'm really sad that he's not there, was Dragon. And he pops in every now and then. And I have no idea how this works, right? And once it got really big, there were a lot of people, let me be the administrator, let me do this, you don't know what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. And one time I hit the wrong button. And I gave the administration thing to some wacko troll who really fucked things up. I had to start a whole new thing again. And that was, you know, Johnny. I left Johnny and started Dreamy Dreamland, right? And, but John and I had this, it's like, you know, Abbott and Costello or or Dean Martin and Hey Lady, that guy, and Bob Hope and Bing Crosby. We really had a chemistry. And if John could have just, I tried, I really did for like 10 months. I mean, really, it was about 15 months, but he threw me out so many times. And what happened what happened was he went to get the Russian girl from the airport in D.C., right? He bought a car, right? He went to the auction, bought a car. He had a license. He got it tagged. And I said, I'll drive you. And he said, no, I want to go, right? All by myself. I want her to just see me, not see you. See, I said, okay. So I stayed back and I went and bought some nice food. I think I bought a duck. Bought a duck and a little bird, whatever they call those things. And I cooked one inside of one, and I made from their livers pate. And I cooked both the birds separately to a certain point, and I filled the duck up with the pate and then put the other bird inside and then made a pate from the bits of that little, the livers of that little bird and mushrooms, right? I made a pate and stuck it in there and then cooked it, right? And I got these coconut leaves and coconut milk. And I made a really interesting, so I cooked those birds together in, like a Dutch oven that I had on top of the stove. And then I had the aluminum thing that you put a turkey into, and I stuffed them into a turkey. And I took all the bones out, right? And I stuffed those two birds into a turkey. And then, right, I put the aluminum around the turkey and put it in the oven and cooked it up. And I had 5 or 6 really nice, like sweet potato mashed potatoes, cauliflower, like mashed potatoes. What else did I have? I had spinach and I had kale, right? And I had black-eyed peas. And these are all things I know how to cook. All this stuff I've done before, I know how to do it. And I went and got these Italian cookies, and I got these Turkish kind of cookies. And, they had a lot of nuts in them and honey and that feta kind of stuff. And it was the closest to a Russian cookie I could find. And there was a Jewish bakery I got and that's the thing about Roanoke. It's like the microcosm. It has every kind of person in there, right? And that's why I used to travel around America and do these demographic studies, right? On this, that, and the other thing. And then I kind of discovered, you know what? I don't have to travel. I just stay here in Roanoke. Everybody's here, right? So anyway, that's why I really got involved in Roanoke big time, right? And I was, community action. I was working in every community to try to make them their best, to understand them, to have them understand themselves, to let them not be so, traumatized by the white corporate structure that's here, the oppressive, thing. So anyway, so he goes off and I'm cooking, right? Just, right. And I make at that Turkish place, I said, I want a tea, a sweet tea that's close to a Russian tea. And he goes, I have this Ukrainian tea. That's just the thing. And that my buddy who ran that Turkish place, he was really great. So he was like giving me all kinds of things to make all this other stuff even more like kind of Russian. And he gave me black bread. So that was kind of cool. And that other kind of bread that's kind of woven. That's most people think is Jewish, but anyway, it's really Russian. And I bought a bunch of wines. I bought, he had some Turkish wines that were very sweet, kind of like he had vodka, Russian vodka. He had Russian cigarettes. I was like, okay. And also I got these Turkish cigarettes, which was like smoke. I mean, they were like such intense tobacco. It would curl your hair. So, I'm doing it. So there's a nice table downstairs where John has painted the floor an interesting painting, and there's the glass thing, and looking out over the city of Roanoke. It's beautiful, and it's gorgeous. So I have a rug upstairs. I take it and I put it there. Put the dining room table. I find at the Goodwill a nice, really sweet, made out of linen tablecloth and napkins, and they had a thing of, it looked like silverware, but I'm sure it was just steel. But they were really fancy and looked old, and they had plates, had the whole thing, right? Anyway, so they get there. He leaves at about 10 in the morning, and they get back around 5 o'clock. And it's kind of wintry time. It's like April, maybe, right? March or April. And I had the fire, right, going. And it was really, really beautiful and nice and sweet. And she comes in and she's like, and I said, oh, come on in. And I meet her and I sit him on the couch. So it's like I got this couch and it's like a love thing. So they're right next to each. And I just keep bringing. I bring cookies and I bring tea. And she said, this is like home. These cookies are like mommy's. And she's like, I'm starving. I hadn't eaten anything for 18 hours. John got me at the airport, and all I wanted to get something to eat, and he wouldn't do it. And then we got lost, and it took us like 5 hours to get here. But the place and amazing. It's just, and she's got this Russian accent. And I said, do you smoke cigarettes? I haven't had a cigarette. And so I have it's a plastic thing, but it looks like it's silver. And I have all these different cigarettes, and I have a lighter, brand new Bic lighter that really works. And she picks up this Russian cigarette that's like, unbelievable nicotine. And I just light it for her. And she's like, and then I light the candles on the table. And then I just keep bringing, first bring out soup with black bread and real butter. And she's slathering on the butter. And John is just looking at all this like. And so he goes in and he gets a gigantic loaf of white bread and crappy olive oil and just puts it on the white bread and starts stuffing it in his mouth. And she's looking, John, eat this. This is great. This is amazing. And he's just like stuffing the white bread in his mouth. And that's kind of why John looks the way he is. That's his like comfort food. And I understand it's oily and it's white bread, so it's sugary. Anyway, so he's like stuffing in his mouth, and she's eating all this stuff, and she is like, and then after the soup, after the cookies, and then the soup, and then I just kept bringing out, I brought the duck, and I had cut the duck with I had a hacksaw, big hacksaw, and it had fine little teeth, and I had the blades, like a brand new blade, never cut anything, no wood, no metal, no nothing, came out of the plastic pack, put it on there, and I sliced these things of the duck, right? And I had this great air fryer thing, and I put 4 of those things just there in this thing that held like tacos, right? And it went in there perfectly. And these slices of the duck and the turkey, the duck, and the whatever the little bird was, and all that other stuff that was inside, and I kind of knocked them with the air fryer. So everything outside was crisper than crisp, not oily at all. And I put 2 of them on there and had this amazing gravy. And it was like, I took all the duck oil, so it was super rich. And I, again, took some of that mushroom pate and made gravy out of it. And had bits of escarole. It's like Italian kale spinach. It's really great. And so I steamed that and then put that stuff into this like pressure cooker thing, and that was the gravy. And then I put it in a nice turn with a little thing. And so first I came, soup, black bread, then a nice plate with each of these vegetable kind of pate, and solids. I had really great carrots that, not turned into mush, but real carrots. and I had peas that I don't know why I can't cook peas, but for this, it actually turned out pretty good. So I had the carrots and the peas together, and I brought that, and still enough black bread, and then I had those vegetables, and then I brought the duck, right? And that was fried like that, and it just knocked her socks off. And then I had a big slab of salmon. And so this big table has all these bowls of all this stuff, and I put them on plates for you, and then, and I don't eat with them, I have them, because I have them sitting in this love seat. There's wine, there's 3 different kinds of wine, and John is just eating white bread with crappy olive oil. I have really good olive oil in there, but he just loves this crappy oil, and he's got it all over him, and she's like a queen, just her eyes are rolling. And then, that's finished. And I have more of these, I gave her the closest thing to Russian cookies I could find, but I had these really amazing Italian fruit cookies, and the black and white cookies, and super black fudge, and I bring that out, and I take the plates, and I kind of put them over here on another table. So if they want some more of that, it's still there. And I give them the sweets, and I bring the vodka and coffee, right? Real strong coffee. And because we started off with tea, and then she's just like, yeah, oh, yeah, baby. And so she's like pretty drunk, and she's like pretty wound up by the nicotine. And John hasn't eaten any of this, right? And so he basically, he's eaten a whole loaf of Wonder Bread and it guzzled the crappy oil, and he hasn't eaten any of this, right? And he's got it kind of all over him, and he I said, John, do you want tea? And she goes, he's drinking this vodka, and she goes, wow, John, try this. And he does, right? He takes one, wow, that's good. And then she's smoking this intense cigarette. He goes, let me try one, because he smoked cigarettes like in a jewel. He would just be sucking on that thing 24/7. And I said, John, that's not the way to smoke tobacco. And I was showing them how to smoke the tobacco and breathe it up and bring a prayer to God. So she is like totally satisfied. She's in America where she wanted to be. She hooked up with this guy just to get into fucking America so she could get a visa. And so they're like, oh. And so, she's sipping on his, and so he drinks the vodka like it was, water, right? And it's a little glass, right? He goes in the kitchen, gets a big glass, and blah, 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 and starts drinking it like that. And so relatively quickly, he gets smashed. And he's like talking like you watch his videos, that's how he talks. And he's smoked one of these intense nicotine cigarettes. And nicotine is his crack cocaine, right? So anyway, so I basically have got this tray with, you go to Walmart's and they have those cheesecakes. They're about this big, and they got one that's all cheesecake. They got one that's got berries swirled through it. Got one that's got chocolate swirled through it, and then they got another one that's got both swirled through it. Half of it's there, so you can have an experience of all the different separate cheesecakes. So I have one of those separate. I have it on another looks like silver platter, but it's a plastic tray. I got it at the Dollar Tree, and I have all the cookies around it, and I have a nice thermos that you squeeze, and it pours it out the tea, because I knew that she would like, after she drank her coffee, and if they're still up, that would settle everything down. And I had this, I forgot, it's kind of there's a term for it. It kind of settles your gut. there's absence, right? And something else. And this thing had absence and that something else in it. And yes, it settles your tummy, but it also kind of gives you that little psychedelic edge, right? It goes that, And so I hand her, I said, John, here, help her. And he just runs up, right? And where they're going to sleep. And he runs up there. And he said, I have to go to the bathroom. And I said, John, why don't you use the bathroom? No, it's my bathroom. And so he runs up there. And so basically, I and my legs were still totally whacked. And so, she takes the tray and I carry the tea thing. And I go into the kitchen that's in John's space up there. If you watch his channel, you can see it. Anyway, so and I set it out really nice. And I actually think I had that stuff already pre-placed up there. And so anyway, did I go up there? I didn't go up there. I had it pre-placed up there because it was a lot of stuff. I had it I said, you're going to go up these stairs and, in the kitchen, I have all these things out there. And I got a little bottle of the really, really good Russian vodka in the refrigerator, right? So there's that. And there's, this tea, and which is like really good Russian tea with this little bit of absinthe and a little bit of, anyway. And she goes, you're such a good man. Oh, and she gives me this big hug and she goes, I'm so happy to be here with you. I said, well, enjoy, John, And so she goes, John, I don't know. I said, well, try to make the best of it. Bring the best out of him. And she goes, the way he drank that big glass of vodka, no one drinks vodka like that. I said, so anyway, they go upstairs, she goes upstairs and I go to bed in my little room, right? And so I'm asleep. Everything's fine. It's all good. And then smash, bang, 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 bang on my door. And he busts through, right? Just like, to wake me up, bang, 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 bang. I have no lock. He's busted through the door a few times. Anyway, so, wait, you gotta get out. You gotta let. And he really looks like he's gonna plant that hammer in my head. He's just totally, drank too much vodka, and he's probably smoked about, I left 10 cigarettes up there, and he's probably smoked them all. And get out. And I said, I got to get out. And so I get in my little Kia, and it's cold and it's dark. The sun's not out. I can't see. I really have bad eyes then. But I've gone up and down that road, for, 15 years. So I know every square. I fixed that road 100 times. So Inga and I used to rake that road. She taught me all about raking roads. Anyway, so we, I get in the car. And I go outside, and she is naked. She came in with this, Russians, they have these mink everything. She has this mink coat with a hood, right? Little Red Riding, but it's black mink. And she's out there in the cold, naked, barefoot, with the mink coat on and a hood over her head. And she's got like 4 of those cigarettes in her mouth. He's crazy. And she's like, went out there too. And so she's, and I just go, well, have a good day. And he comes out and he starts screaming, you got hair on your pussy. You got hair in your arms. I said, wait a minute, John, before I leave, that's how it grows. He goes, oh, no, I want it shaved. I want it smooth like my wife. And he goes, she goes, that's all he talks about. He was just calling me his wife's name, and I don't fit to his, I don't sound like his wife, and my breath smells not like his wife. And anyway, so I go, good, you guys work it out. See you later, bye. And so I kind of leave, and that's a whole nother story. I mean, I have no real money. I have like maybe $20, $30 in my pocket. I'm not yet 65, so I don't have my Social Security, and I've pretty much given everything away. And so anyway, to the poor, and so I do have a full tank of gas, and so I go to myself, where am I going to go? And I decide that I'm going to go to West Virginia, because it's this town. It's really only, all I have to do is take 460, and then hit this 220 road that goes up into West Virginia, right where 60, the interstate that goes to DC is, right? Right there, just before it, there's a big truck stop. And if I take whatever West Virginia highway that is, that kind of goes this way towards where the college is, Morgantown. Okay, that's a plan. So I get in the car and I, drive down the hill, and it's really, really cold. And we have this hill that's like ice skating rink. So there's this place. I get out of our 2-mile long driveway of where the school is up into the top of the mountain. And there's this place over there. It's a very nice little place that you can park, and you're out of the way. And I park there, and I turn the heat on, and I kind of wrap myself, I always like this car. This is, I keep a go bag. I have clothes. I have stuff, I have tools, blankets. So I kind of wrap myself up in a blanket, turn the heat up till it's warm, turn the engine off, and fall asleep. And it's right where this place is perfect because the sun rises right there. It hits it before it hits the valley, before it hits anything, before it hits the school. Bang! It hits this place. And it really comes over this little hill, and it's like a light switch. Bang! Right? So I point the car right at that, and I'm sleeping, and I just get asleep, and I'm pretty comfy, and I'm sleeping, and then bang, the light hits me, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay. And the one thing I did do was I had this thermos that I made that really strong coffee in downstairs for dinner. I had grabbed that thermos. That was the one, and I did grab a bunch of those cookies that were there. I just kind of like took them and put them in a garbage bag, and a few other little yummies that were still, I hadn't really put everything away or washed all the dishes, and I just kind of put it on there and got in the car and left. And so, I was drinking the coffee, eating the cookies, going, yeah, this is a good way to see the sunrise. And so, okay, I wait until the sun not only bang hits me, the sun first hits that road. So any kind of moisture that has turned into any kind of ice, all I have to do is wait, all really I have to do is sit in that car, the sun's right in my face, and soon as that sun gets above the visor, the roof of my car, that road is ready to drive on. And I'm pointed right in that direction, right? So I'm looking down, road looks not icy, but dry-ish, right? And so, because if it hadn't snowed, hadn't rained, but it's those things in the mountains, right? So I'm looking at it, and I've been driving up and down that road for a good 15 years. So, okay, this is fine. And I do. It's a perfect road, perfect set. So I'm talking to God, said, thank you, God. Get me up here. I got onto the 221, which is a road that goes from basically Roanoke to Floyd, down the hill to Charlotte, down into Florida. 221 goes all the way, but it's like, a county road, state road. Anyway, so I get onto that. I head to, Roanoke, which is about 7 miles away. I take Williamson Road into town, and there is the Roanoke Hotel. Big, fancy, super duper, super fancy hotel. And they have a great breakfast. I mean, just knock your socks breakfast. And the lady who runs the hotel, my bud, the guy who is the head chef, and that whole school, it's privately owned, it's corporate, it's a nonprofit, but it's been hooked up to, tech for a good 20, 40 years, where everyone who's studying to get a degree in hospitality works in that hotel. So it's like a training place. So it's really good. Rich people pay a lot of money. Everybody else, they have a really sliding thing. And if you know the people in there, I could get suites for $40. That was the lowest rate. Anyway, so I kind of drive in there like it's 6 a.m. It's just the kitchen. I'm the first guy. I park. I know the right place to park. They have this loop where the rich people come and get out of their cars, and then the guy takes the car to the underground thing. But there's these 4, cripple parking spots, and it goes right from the crippled parking spot to this beautiful deck that looks out on this beautiful, garden when it's, summery, spring, fall. But in the wintertime, it's got Christmas trees and Christmas ornaments, and it looks right over the city. So if you sit there, and they have those heat things that keep you hot, right? So I kind of go up there, and one of those tables is my table all the time. Summer, winter, and in the Sundays I have these unbelievable Sunday buffets that just knock your socks off. And so, and these kids learn how to cook everything. So anyway, I know this. It's 6 a.m. and they have the 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. kind of breakfast for the people who are staying there, which is still great, right? And at 10, they start putting the stuff on the buffet table. And if you're there, you can start nibbling away on that stuff. So anyway, and they have a thing where if you're at the buffet and you get a plate, right? And you eat half that, you move that plate over there, and then you go get another plate. I used to get 10 plates, and they would come out with these boxes and put all the stuff, and then put them in these nice paper big bags that you could that fit the boxes in perfectly, so nothing spoiled or got turned over, or you didn't end up with it in the bottom of your car. Anyway, so I go there and I really fill up because I have no idea where I'm going to end up, so I might as well. I got the cookies and the coffee and some of the amazing turkey, duck, bird, and some I like those kind of like bags you get from Walmart's. I put the vegetable gooey stuff in those and tie the knot and put them in the garbage bag. Anyway, I had that in the car, and so I had the big meal, and the lady who ran the place, she got there early, and she did the same thing. Meaning she's kind of banged up, so she has her cripple thing on her car, and that was like where she would park. She would park there, come through the door I was sitting outside, and it was winter. It was the sun again hits this thing where I'm sitting, and they have the heat lamps up above, so I'm toasty, and they have little plasticky things to buffer you from the wind. Anyway, so she comes up and goes, "Oh, what are you doing here? Where do you look? Good, but it's not Sunday." I said, "Well, it's like 7 a.m. You're like here on the dot. Wait, you gotta take a trip?" And I tell her a story, and I tried to take John there once. And he got so freaked out, he ran away, right? I had to go find him, right? So, because I was sitting there and all these people who knew me in Roanoke, he's grown up in New York, Roanoke, right? And all these people in this hotel come in, "Oh, how you doing? Oh, who's this?" It's my friend John. "Oh, the guy who bought your place." "Oh, yeah." And they would go, "Boy, you're so lucky to have Al as your friend." And John just got totally... And so he never went back to that with me. And I could have taken him every Sunday because I went every Sunday. And it was the Holiday Inn was my other place. And I would go there Friday. And they had a great deal. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? So Friday you came in the afternoon, and the bar had a great buffet that you could just graze on. And you get this weekend thing where you got this suite that was right off the swimming pool, right? And the gym. And you got the bar buffet, dinner, Friday dinner, which was roast beef. No, it's fish. It was lobster. Everything lobster. Lobster bisque, lobster. The roast beef was Saturday. And Sunday was this big buffet. They had so there was a period when that place was really good, right? And my buddy, who is the hospitality guy, the head of the bartender and the head of the club, the nightclub was called something elephant, the walking elephant or the dancing elephant or something like that. But it's in the Holiday Inn in the first shopping center in Roanoke. I'll remember it. Anyway, I'm in the Roanoke hotel, and the manager lady is, she's got breakfast with you. So she does. And, she's the boss, so they come out and she tells them what she wants and they bring it to her, and we're talking about this and that, and I tell her the story about what I cooked and how I cooked it, and she goes, Al, that guy, I said, why do you even hang out? I said, well, because he's my friend and I don't give up on my friends. I see the internal goodness in him, and he does really stupid, bad stuff, but he hasn't killed anyone lately. She goes, but when you just said he threatened you with a hammer. Yeah, but he wasn't going to hit me. And anyway, I could, she goes, you're old. You aren't your young self anymore. You're not, Mr. Kung Fu anymore. And I said, I have enough in me to take care of, to be safe. Anyway, so she goes, okay. So we talk about all the other things because she's black. She comes from the black scene. She, so we talking about that. And I'm involved in a lot of the I'm trying to get the black community back together. After they bulldozed down the heart of the black economy in Roanoke in the 60s to build the convention center and the highway. And that's, that's straight up imperialism. He built highways through every city and wiped out every black neighborhood. And up until why we got rid of Jim Crow in 1960, why the Voting Act happened in 1960s, is because LBJ, he was the most racist mother, bleep, 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 you ever wanted to know. And he went to his and the Democrats they weren't liberals. The Republicans were the liberals. And that shows you that it doesn't matter which side it's on. It's two wings of the same corporate bird. So he basically, after Kennedy got whacked, and he said, we have to rebrand ourselves because the majority of the voters are ethnic, black, and basically, union, socialists. So we got rid of the communist socialists with the Red Scare. And, Woodrow Wilson got rid of the Black Party with Jim Crow. So this is what we do. We do a jujitsu move. We embrace all those guys, but on our terms. So we can get rid of them completely and rebrand them. And because they're the largest voting act, that's all kind of mixed up. And we could sometimes win and sometimes lose. If we do this, we'll win for the next 30 years, right? And the Republicans will be on the outs. And that's what they did, right? So, and, Richard Nixon was more Democratic, than anyway, that's another whole story. So anyway, my battery's about to die. And come on, guys. So one of you left. It's only AI. And there's only 5 thumbs up. Come on. So I'm going to leave right now so I can do it. Because last show was a great show. I had almost 300 people watch. And it seems not to be there. So I'm going to do everything right and put the show to bed so it's happy and it can render up into my channel and see what happens. Okay? But there's more than enough shows there that I've talked about everything. I mean, all the stuff I talked about right now is pretty much I've talked about it before. So I love you guys. Remember, love's co-creation. That's all there is.